Good afternoon, everyone. I want to open this quarterly meeting of the Texas State University System Board of Regents and call the meeting to order. This meeting is authorized under Government Code 551 regarding the Open Meeting Act as amended by the 76th Legislature effective September the 1st of 1999. The agenda for this meeting was registered with the Secretary of State on August the 10th, 2020. For the record, the date is August 13, 2020, and the time is what, Laura? 2:01. Okay, a quorum of the board is present. Would everyone please rise? And Regent Flores will lead us in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Regent Harrell will lead the pledge to the Texas flag, and Regent Tinsley will deliver the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please pray with me. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us, and especially the privilege and the honor to have a decision in the ongoing educational process of our system. We ask that you look after us, Lord, in these troubled times with worldwide pandemics and the political chaos that we're experiencing now. We ask you to please get this country back on track and be the great country that it once was. We ask this day for your divine guidance so that you will help us in our deliberations on the decisions we have to make concerning our educational system. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I want to start out by thanking Dr. Hart and her entire team for hosting us today. And I also want to say welcome to President Dr. White, our new Sam Houston State President, whose job began officially on Monday. Well, Dana, this building and this everything that I see is just outstanding. We're all so proud of what's been accomplished, and a lot more will be said before the day's over. But this should be a really happy day for you, and we're all looking forward to the tour tomorrow. I also want to welcome Pete Gallego, the new, where am I? There you are, Pete. Can't recognize you. President of Sol Ross. I was talking to Fernando earlier, and we've never had two presidents that nobody on the board had ever met. And not having these meetings that's one of the things that we really miss. So welcome, and it's great to have both of you. Also, we have our new student regent, Amanda Lee. Amanda. We always enjoy the student regents, and they do add to the board meeting. Since it's been a while since we've all been together, and this is semi-face-to-face, I'd like to remind the board that after each motion, those motions that are going to require a second, please raise your hand and to help with the determination of who made the second. And also remind everyone that we're streaming live on the internet for public consummation. It's not spelled right. Okay. Consumption. Our first item of business is the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. That'll be the meeting from May the 21st, June 4th, and July 14th. Regents, do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes for May the 21st? If there are none, I move that the minutes to the quarterly Board of Regents meeting held on May the 21st be approved. Do I hear a second? Second by Regent Amato. Is there any discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Next item is for the minutes of June the 4th. Regents, are there any additions or corrections to the June 4th special called meeting minutes? If there are none, then I make the motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Is there any objections to the motion? If not, the motion passes unanimously. Third item, Regents, any additions or corrections to the July 14th special call meeting minutes? If there are none, do I hear a motion that the minutes be approved as submitted? Nikki Harrell. Is there any discussion or objection? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. We'll now hear reports and motions from the committees. The committees met prior to the board meeting to go over proposed agenda items in detail. All items under consideration were voted on by the committee before coming to the full board. I'll now call on the chairs of the committees to present their reports and make motions to the full board. The first committee is Academic and Health Affairs. Regent Gary Crane.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. The Academic and Health Affairs Committee met telephonically on Monday, August 3rd, 2020, and was chaired by me. With committee members Regent Edwards and Regent Harrell in attendance. Also, we had Regent Flores and representatives from other institutions and systems that were also in attendance. All action and consent items were reviewed, discussed, and approved by the committee to be moved to the full board. Because of our meeting format today, I will make a motion for approval of each of the 6 action items. The board chair will call for a second and will ask if there are any discussion or objections. If none, the motion will pass. All right, number 1 of the 6. Sam Houston State University wants to modify an undergraduate admissions criteria. I move that Sam Houston State University be approved to temporarily use a test optional approach for freshman admissions requirements for students entering in the fall semesters starting spring 2021, summer 2021, fall 2021, and spring, summer, and fall 2022. Chairman Scott.
Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Amato. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Chairman Scott, the second item here is another Sam Houston State University degree program addition for a Master's of Science in Athletic Training. I move that Sam Houston State University be authorized to offer a degree program and the associated new course addition leading to the Master's or the Master of Science and Athletic Training. Chairman Scott.
Do I hear a second? Regent Flores. Any objections or comments? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. Item number 3 is Lamar Institute of Technology. They would like an addition of a shielded metal arc welding level 1 certificate. Therefore, I move that Lamar Institute of Technology be authorized to offer a level 1 shielded metal arc welding certificate to be implemented upon final approval by the TSUS Board of Regents and, of course, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, effective fall 2021. Chairman Scott.
Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Tinsley. Any questions, objections, or objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, Chairman Scott, we're down to item number 4, and it is again Lamar Institute of Technology, who wishes to add an addition of pipe welding level 2 certificate. With that in mind, I therefore move that Lamar Institute of Technology be authorized to offer a level 2 pipe welding certificate to be implemented upon final approval by the TSUS Board of Regents and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, effective this fall 2020. Chairman Scott.
Do I hear a second? Regent Harrell. Any questions, objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Chairman Scott, we're at now item number 5. It's a Lamar Institute of Technology requesting addition of residential HVAC installation certificate level number 1. Therefore, I move that Lamar Institute of Technology be authorized to offer a residential heating, ventilation, and air conditioning installation level 1 certificate to be implemented upon final approval by the TSUS Board of Regents and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, effective fall 2021. Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Montaigne. Any discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, Chairman Scott, we're on the final agenda item here, number 6, and it is a Texas State University System informational item, which requests certification of the enrollment report for spring 2020. All other remaining items are included in the consent agenda unless, of course, someone wishes to remove an item for consent. This concludes the committee's report to the board.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Finance and Audit Committee. Regent Allen Tinsley, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. The Finance and Audit Committee met on August 5th, 2020 to discuss finance and audit items included in today's agenda. I chaired the meeting and Regents Flores, Montaigne, and Scott participated. Regent Harrell and Student Regent Lee were also in attendance. The committee considered all items and agreed to move each item to today's meeting for consideration by the full board. At this time, the first item on the agenda is TSUS operating budgets for fiscal year 2021. At this time, I would like to call on Daniel to provide a short summary of the budget highlights. Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you today is the fiscal 21 consolidated operating budget. This budget includes unrestricted operating funds, which is your state appropriations, your tuition and fees, your housing, your dining, athletic revenues, etc. It's important to note that this budget excludes restricted funds, which is your Pell Grants, specific research, endowment and proceeds, and non-operating funds, which are generally capital in nature. Revenues is $1.35 billion. That's down 3% from last fiscal year. And tuition and fees on here is $721 million, which is around 54%. So you'll see from a operating budget perspective, we're just a little bit north of 50% with tuition and fees versus the other funding sources. Here you can see the change. So again, tuition and fees is down $17.5 million, 2.4%. That is the combination of the fiscal 20 actuals against enrollment changes that we use for budgeting purposes, and then against tuition and fee changes approved by the board. The state appropriation amount for fiscal 21 is the appropriated amount minus the presumed reduction from the legislature. Sales and services relates to predominantly your housing and dining operations, and again, that's based on actual revenues against anticipated changes and the change in rates approved by the board. And then other category, which is down the most, that is a combination of items like Seaman and Lehman at Sam Houston, could be clinic revenues, etc., throughout the system, investment income. Here are the revenue assumptions that we've covered. Again, tuition and fees is the board approved rates, enrollment versus modality assumptions, the state appropriation amount. It does exclude tuition revenue bond debt service, the school safety center at Texas State, the alert program at Texas State, financial aid programs, the higher education fund benefits, and the state appropriations for Lamar State Colleges. All of them have been excluded from the interim cut. And then, as we talked about, sales and services is the board approved residence hall rates, meal rates, and enrollment assumptions. From here, you see the expenditures by institution comparing fiscal 20 to fiscal 21. The vast majority you can see is going to be at Texas State University. And again, this is the balance between enrollment impacts, tuition and fee changes that ultimately all feed to the expense side. And it's down for expenditures right at 4%. And this is our chart of the expenditures by function. Historically, we look at comparing instructional support, academic support, student support against the other expenditure functions. 52% of our expenditures are related to direct academic or instructional support on that chart. Next up is your expenditures by object, and this will be, again, of no shock to the board and similar to before. 63% of our expenditures are associated with payroll related. And you can see other items on there, utilities and travel make up a substantially smaller amount. And in kind of a recap, it's a conservative approach to the next academic year. Budget adjustments may follow when we know actual fall enrollment. It's a balanced budget. There is a targeted use of fund balance. The institutions overall have adequate reserves, and we are of sound fiscal condition. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks on the operating budget.
Thank you, Daniel. Chairman Scott, I move that the fiscal year 2021 operating budgets for the components of the Texas State University system be approved.
Thank you. Second by Regent Montaigne. Any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes.
The next item for consideration is TSUS Fiscal Year 2021 Audit and Compliance Plan. Chairman Scott, I move that the Fiscal Year 2021 Audit and Compliance Plan for the Texas State University System be approved.
Second, Regent Flores. Any discussion or objection? Hearing none, the motion passes.
The next item is the Informational Finance Quarterly Update. And again, at this time, I'd ask Daniel to provide a quarterly finance update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was actually proposed for the last meeting, but since we went virtual, we opted to postpone to this meeting. This is over the Composite Financial Index with the suggestion of some of my fellow counterparts across the state and within our system, both Texas State and Sam Houston. We've looked at this metric called the Composite Financial Index to kind of measure or review maybe the financial health of the system. This provides a longitudinal trend on indications of the financial health of an institution or the system. It's designed by higher education to assist in measuring the overall financial health. It includes 4 ratios that are developed that are weighted to make one score: the primary reserve ratio, viability, the return on net asset, and the net operating revenues. The primary reserve ratio, this is the first ratio, it's weighted at 35%, and it measures the institution's operating commitments. The question it asks is, are resources sufficient and flexible enough to support the mission? The calculation is fairly simple. It's net assets over total expenses. We've looked at this before and we've kind of called it maybe a cash on hand approach. Our score is right under 0.5, which is 171 days, and the benchmark is 0.4, which is at 146 days. So it shows you on this ratio we're right north of where the target is. The next ratio is the viability ratio, and this measures your outstanding long-term obligations against your assets. It asks the question, are debt resources managed strategically to advance the mission? Calculation is essentially your assets over your long-term debt. You'll see that our score is 0.61, while the benchmark is 1.25. So it shows we are below the benchmark for this ratio. But this ratio is interesting to me because we also look at debt with 3 other ratios: debt burden, debt service coverage, and leverage. And all of those ratios, we're in line with our peer group. So this one is one that I'm going to spend some time kind of digging more into to see how it balances with those other 3 ratios that we use. The third ratio is your return on net assets, and it measures your ability to generate overall return on assets. The calculation is your net assets against your beginning balance, so really kind of a percentage of what your, some people would call it a profit, we don't in higher ed, but shows you what you've earned in a year. Our score is right under 5% with a benchmark at 6, so you can see we're kind of in with our benchmark where we want to be. And the last ratio is net operating revenues, and this is your ability to live within your means. So as if you're positive, it means you're going forward. If you're negative, you're going backwards. We're at 2.45%, and the benchmark is at 2%. So again, we're right in line with the benchmark on this one. Those 4 ratios combine a composite score. And what's nice about this ratio, if you're high on some and low on others, it kind of balances it out. One of the things that it shows, if you have higher debt, but on the same hand have higher reserves, those kind of balance each other out. Our score is 2.42 for the last fiscal year, which the benchmark is 3%. You can see that in 15, we were at 2%, or we were at a 2 ratio. We moved to 3, we stayed at a 3, and now we've kind of come back down to a 2.5. And to add some color to this presentation, I provided a copy of their infographic, or their graphic that they use to highlight. A 3%, or a 3 is right in the middle, and you can see again as we've kind of trended right on that benchmark. Moving forward, we're going to add fiscal 20 data when it's available, and just kind of use this as a tool, I think, to ask questions. I don't think it gives you necessary answers, but ask questions at the system level, but then also at a component level about the financial health and the future of where we're going across the system. And Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Daniel. The remaining items are included in the consent agenda, and they are amendment to the investment consultant contract and the quarterly quasi-endowment reports. If no one wants to move any of these items to the regular agenda and off the consent agenda, please speak up. If not, that will conclude the Audit and Finance Committee's report.
Thank you, Regent Tinsley. Our next committee is Planning and Construction. The report will be submitted by Regent David Montaigne, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Construction Committee met Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 to discuss the planning and construction agenda. Thank you. The Planning and Construction Committee met August 4th, I know I'm really messed up, 2020 to discuss the planning and construction agenda. Chairman Scott chaired the meeting. Regents Austin and I participated. Regent Flores, Harrell, Student Regent Lee were also in attendance. The committee considered all items and agreed to move each item to today's meeting for the board's consideration. First item for consideration is the Houston State University design development documents for the Ron Mafridge Fieldhouse renovation. Chairman Scott, I move the design development documents for the Ron Mafridge renovation project at Sam Houston State University be approved.
Second, Regent Flores. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Second item for consideration is Texas State's design development documents for the University Police Department building. Chairman Scott, I move the design development documents for the University Police Department project at Texas State University be approved.
Second, Veronica, you're too quiet over there. Raise your hand. Motion made and seconded. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes.
The next agenda on the item is an informational item. There's no motion or rules. It's quarterly planning and construction report. Mr. Chairman, the remaining items are on the consent agenda. There are additions to the 2025 capital improvements program, additions to the 2021 to 2026 capital improvement program, authorization of agreement for program management services with Hill International, and authorization of agreement to program management services with MPM Ventures, LLC. If there's no one wanting to move those to the full board, that finishes my report.
Any objections to moving to full board? Hearing none, the remaining items go to the consent agenda. The next committee is Rules and Regulations. Regent Veronica Esquiz Edwards, Committee Chair. Veronica.
Thank you, Chair Scott. The Rules and Regulations Committee met by telephone on Tuesday, August the 4th, 2020. As discussed, the items on the Rules and Regulations agenda. I chaired the meeting, which was also attended by committee members Regent Flores and Regent Tinsley and Board Chairman Scott, Regent Harrell, and Student Regent Lee. The Chancellor and representatives of the System Administration Office and of the component institutions were also present. The meeting was duly posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Law. The committee voted unanimously to recommend that all agenda items dealing with mostly administrative matters be placed on the consent agenda, and unless any regent would like to move one of these rules to the meeting agenda, the committee recommends that they remain in part of the consent agenda. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the Rules and Regulations Committee report.
Very good, thank you. Are there any objections to moving these items to the consent agenda? Hearing none, they are moved to the consent agenda tomorrow. Next is governmental relations. Regent David Montaigne, Chair and Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, Sean Cunningham is going to come and give us a report.
First, I'd like to concentrate my remarks on how the Governmental Relations Division has worked through the challenges of the pandemic as we near the start of the 2020 fall semester. In addition, I'll discuss the impending 87th legislative session and some of the prep work we have leading up to next January. In late May, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, the Higher Education Foundation, Greater Texas Foundation, and Trellis Foundation announced that the Texas Emergency Aid Grant Program was awarding 57 grants to Texas higher education institutions. The grants, totaling $710,000, support students across every region of the state during the COVID-19 crisis. Nearly all of our institutions in our system received grants, and I want to thank Commissioner Harrison Keller and his incredible team for their help. Also, in early July, Governor Abbott announced that Texas will invest $57 million in federal funds to maintain the state's need-based financial aid programs. The source of the funding was from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, made available through the Federal CARES Act. On behalf of the board, chancellor, and universities, I want to thank Governor Abbott for his generous support and help to higher education. As you know, we sometimes have to celebrate small victories, and with respect to state funding. Thanks to Daniel Harper and others, we were able to exempt the alert funding and Texas School Safety Center funding over at Texas State. The funding cuts from the 5% cuts that were ordered by the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker earlier this year. Also, because the community colleges were spared the 5% cut, we were able to successfully include our state colleges in that relief, and will now be able to retain a bit more than they would have had the cuts applied to them as well. The governmental relations team has been busy participating and assisting in several initiatives over the past several months. I want to start by highlighting the work of Nellie Herrera and the legal team with their quick turnaround of the newly adopted Title IX regulations. We participated in several calls with Nellie and other systems to help create policies or craft policies that were universal and help discuss best practices moving forward. In addition, the GR team has been monitoring coordinating board activities, associations, and groups like the Texas State University System Education Deans as they discuss the challenges moving forward and work to seek help from agencies like TEA and the coordinating board. TSUS and system components have also been monitoring and participating in several Facebook Live and virtual events over the past months. Chancellor McCall and Chancellor Milliken of the UT system participated in a Facebook Live event with Chairman Chris Turner of the House Higher Education Committee to discuss the great work that our schools have done during the pandemic. In addition, Texas State's Lisa Lloyd participated in a virtual event with Representative Aaron Zwiener on the challenges facing Texas State and its students as we plan for fall 2020. Obviously, the last several months have provided a unique challenge to the Governmental Relations Division with regard to outreach to members and staff. However, given these unprecedented challenges, I believe the GR team has continued to foster and cultivate relationships to the best of our abilities. We have continued to utilize existing platforms like Zoom to communicate with staff on the numerous issues facing our institutions, and will continue to inform them as we near 2021. In addition, my staff and I have found several unique and safe methods to continue educating members and staff to the unique challenges facing our institutions as they plan for the fall semester. It is vital that we continue to build our relationships as we head into the legislative session that is likely to look quite different than previous sessions. I will discuss these speculative changes in a bit, but the GR division is hyper-focused on strengthening our rapport with members and staff ahead of the 87th legislative session. As you are keenly aware by now, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected every aspect of our everyday lives, and it appears that the Texas Capitol and the impending legislative session is not immune to this uncertainty. While I do not want to speculate too much on what changes may lie ahead, I do believe that next legislative session will look quite different than normal. Currently, leadership in the House and Senate is working on safety measures for members as well as planning for the logistics of a legislative session during a pandemic. Needless to say, we expect a much different looking Capitol next January through May. I'm not looking forward to the elevators and all the people that are going to be crowding those elevators if they are to open beyond 25% capacity. Last week, we received interim charges from both the House Higher Education Committee and House Appropriations. I want to make our institutions aware that you will likely be hearing from System Office to help highlight the work being done at our universities. The House Higher Education Committee and Appropriations charges focus on some of the following issues: how our institutions have handled the COVID-19 pandemic, monitoring existing legislation from last session and previous sessions, including transfer, campus free speech, and dual credit, online education, and monitoring 60 by 30. Also, tuition revenue bonds and formula funding. As always, we appreciate the institution's assistance as we seek a substantive and timely response to our friends in the legislature. Perhaps many of you heard that there's going to be a rather monumental election in November. While I don't want to spend the next 4 hours discussing the presidential election, it seems as though Texas may be competitive for the first time in decades. And this will have a profound impact on state elections. While I will present a comprehensive breakdown at the November board meeting, we could be looking at a Texas legislature next session that looks quite different than what we've had in previous sessions. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we'll also have a new speaker. Conversations are likely occurring, and I hope by the next board meeting, we are lucky enough to have a new Speaker of the Texas House. Although, in light of a likely competitive general election, I wouldn't expect a new speaker in the very near future. With regard to the federal update, I'm not going to read that to you. I'll let you look at that at your leisure. But know that there's important stuff like the CARES Act funding and things that are obviously going to impact everything from student aid to just helping colleges survive during this pandemic. Lastly, I'd like to close by, although I'm not the only representative of governmental relations, I want to extend a heartfelt congratulations to President Dana Hoyt from the entire GR team. President Hoyt, her team have always been a pleasure to work with and have always found a way to say yes to our legislative requests, both big and small. Her work on the DO school was an inspiration to our team, and the successful passage of the Sam Houston DO program was a point of pride to our team and system. President Hoyt has become a beloved figure at the Texas Capitol, even endearing herself to several Stephen F. Austin graduates working in the building. I know peers Candace and I received countless calls, texts, and emails wishing her well and wishing her the best when she announced her retirement. So one last time, on behalf of the GR team, thank you, President Hoyt. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, David. This report is for information only. No motions are necessary. The board now will consider contracts, personnel, and miscellaneous items. First, contracts. Next item of business is the approval of contracts. All the items in the contracts section have been moved to the consent agenda. Are there any questions from the board or any items which a board member might wish to pull? Hearing none, all the items will move to the consent agenda. Next is personnel. The first item under personnel is the authority to negotiate compensation for the chancellor and the delegation of that authority to the chairman. Is there a motion to delegate to the chair the authority to determine the compensation for the chancellor during the fiscal year 2021? Motion made by Regent Crane, seconded by Regent Flores. Any discussion, questions? Any objections? Hearing no objections, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is delegation of authority to determine the compensation for the chief audit executive for 2021. That authority to the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Regent Amato. Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Harrell. Is there any discussion? Both of these are historically what the board has done. Hearing no objections, the motion will pass unanimously. The remaining action items on the personnel section have been moved to Friday's agenda. The remaining items under personnel are also on the consent agenda. The next item of business is the miscellaneous section. The first item is from Sam Houston State University to be authorized to name the new tennis complex the Chuck and Wanda Beckner Tennis Center. I'll ask Dr. Hoyt to please comment on this item.
All right, thank you, Chairman Scott. Yes, Chuck Beckner and his wife Wanda have provided us $1 million toward the new tennis complex, and it's going to be across from the baseball field on the land we acquired a couple of years ago there. He actually played some baseball for Sam at one point, but has since then played tennis continuously, and that's his passion. So we've worked with him over the last few years to find the right project, and this was it for him. So we're really, really excited that this is going to move forward, and that our tennis team will actually finally have some nice digs for a change.
It's fantastic. Are there any questions or comments from the regents? Do I hear a motion that Sam Houston State University be authorized to name the new tennis complex after Chuck and Wanda Beckner? Okay, second? Second, Regent Crane. Is there any discussion or any objections to the motion? Hearing no objections there being no discussion, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is a walk-on motion The next item is a walk-on motion from Texas State University System and Sam Houston State University. It's a resolution honoring Dr. Dana Hoyt, president of Sam Houston State University, with an order to confer President Emeritus status and rename the Sam Houston State University Art Complex in her honor. At this time, I'm going to ask At this time, I'm going to ask Chancellor McCall to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have had an amazing president at Sam Houston State University for the past 10 years. She was the first president that I had the privilege of being involved in the hiring of. We are the same age. We went to high schools that were 2 miles apart and didn't know each other. But it has been a delight working with this amazing leader for the past decade. I mentioned that she was the first president I was involved in hiring, and I was 2 months on the job, and I was more nervous in the interview than she was. To tell you how far I've come, the newest president of Sam Houston, I actually interviewed in shorts and house shoes and a coat and tie. So Dana, thank you for what you've done. The Arts Center is a particular point of pride for Dana, and so that it should bear her name going forward is only appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Regents, comments or questions? Well, I know Dana will fully present this resolution at dinner this evening, where more of your colleagues can participate. But it's my pleasure to make the motion that we adopt this resolution honoring Dr. Hoyt, and an exceptional president and a fine lady, and it forever be memorialized in the proceedings of this board and in the permanent records of Sam Houston State University. Therefore, the title President Emeritus, together with the privileges and prerequisites stated in the rules and regulations for professors emeritus, emeriti, be conferred and forevermore inure to President Hoyt, and further, that the Chancellor assure that the art complex on the Sam Houston State University campus be appropriately renamed in recognition of her service. Regent Tinsley, do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussions? I'm sure there are no objections. Hearing none.
Well deserved, well deserved.
Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right, after that standing ovation, would you like to comment, President Hoyt? Tears are okay.
What I've decided is it's hard to cry in a mask because you can't breathe. I really, really appreciate, I've enjoyed all the time. The Board of Regents, you've been phenomenally supportive of everything during this time period. I can't tell you how much that means when you're going out there and trying to work hard on some of this daily, because not everything on campuses goes as smoothly as you would like. But I really do appreciate all the support. And the Chancellor, who knew? Yes, I was the first hire, I guess, here and as a president, and he's an amazing person to work for, and just is become a very good friend. So thank you so much.
Well, I know we all appreciate all you've done. And our next item is another walk-on item being placed before you now. And on the screen, it says, This is the last action item from our miscellaneous section and is a resolution honoring Texas State University System's Vice Chancellor and General Counsel, Dr. Fernando Gomez. At this time, I'll also call on Chancellor McCall to comment.
Dr. Gomez has kept us legal for almost 30 years. He was the general counsel of the California State University System and the general counsel of the Texas State University System, and has seen all sorts of changes. At the time he joined the system was smaller than Texas State University alone is today. His fingerprints are on every positive change that has taken place in the 30 years that he's been associated with this system, giving good advice, being creative, and helping. And so it's with a great deal of enthusiasm, Mr. Chairman, that we announce, after you continue, a few things to honor this good man.
Very good. At this time, I move that the resolution honoring Dr. Fernando C. Gomez, Vice Chancellor and General Counsel of the Texas State University System, be adopted, forever to be memorialized in the minutes of the Board of Regents, and that Dr. Gomez be forever conferred the title Vice Chancellor and General Counsel Emeritus of the Texas State University System, together with all honors and prerequisites appropriate thereto. Do I hear a second? Second, Regent Harrell. Any discussion? And I don't allow any objections. Therefore, this motion passes unanimously. Now that it's passed, I'll ask Regent Montaigne to read the resolution.
It's rather lengthy, Fernando, but you better get through. A lengthy career. Whereas Dr. Fernando G. Gomez, a native of the city of Gallup in the scenic state of New Mexico, enjoyed a rigorous education under the tutelage of dedicated Jesuit priests and brothers while attending St. Francis Seminary in Cincinnati, Ohio, during his early formative years, and who studied for the priesthood for 5 years, attending Franciscan seminaries in Ohio, Michigan, and who went to graduate cum laude from University of New Mexico with a degree in sociology and English, and whose insatiable thirst for knowledge led him to the University of Michigan School of Law, where he earned his Juris Doctorate before achieving a PhD in American Culture from the University of Michigan, Horace J. Rackman's School of Graduate Studies. Whereas Dr. Fernando Gomez began his career in academia, serving as a member of the faculty of Michigan State University in Urban Studies for 7 years and achieving a much-deserved tenure status after 5 years. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is an outstanding jurist, having worked in private practice and in government service as an assistant attorney general in both Michigan and Texas, where he successfully litigated cases for various state entities, including Sul Ross University, and one of the first, if not the first, case to be tried under the 1983 Texas Whistleblower Act. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez served as general counsel for the California State University System before assuming the position of Vice Chancellor and General Counsel for the Texas State University System, a position which he has served with distinction for almost 30 years. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez began his auspicious legal career with Texas State University System when it was comprised of 4 universities, 1 doctoral program, and an enrollment under 39,000 students. And whereas Dr. Fernando Gomez, as Vice Chancellor and General Counsel to the Texas State University System, has served brilliantly as Chief Legal Counsel to 75 regents, 3 chancellors, 29 presidents, and numerous administrators and faculty members, and through his distinguished service has set the highest standards by which all vice chancellors and general counsels will be assessed. And whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is a bold visionary and outstanding leader who created a general counsel's office of the highest caliber, thanks to keen oversight and personal involvement with complex transformational legal issues, including the purchase of the Christmas Mountains and the transition of the Lamar campuses to the Texas State University system. And whereas Fernando C. Gomez is a highly accomplished and much respected scholar whose legal acumen on such topics as constitutional law and ethical principles is unsurpassed, having presented as a legal expert on these and other specialized topics at numerous professional and legal conferences excuse me, throughout the U.S. and overseas, including Cuba and Yemen. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is a man of great intellectual curiosity, an enthusiastic historian, a gifted writer, having authored 2 books on Texas law, masterfully chronicled the impressive story of the Texas State University system into its centennial celebration book, A Texas State of Mind, and a second successful iteration of this notable publication. And whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is a compassionate humanitarian, served on numerous nonprofit boards for various social justice causes. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez epitomizes the consummate professional, the passionate advocate, the astute scholar, the superb author, and the eloquent orator, and the fiercely loyal and dedicated friend and colleague to those who have the honor and privilege of working with him. And whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is a loving husband to the beautiful wife and partner in life and dance, Miss Sylvia Gomez, who met in German class over 50 years ago, and devoted father to highly accomplished daughter Rebecca and her husband Juan Valentin Cuellar Jr., and son Fernando and his wife Nicole, and a doting grandfather and great-grandfather of the world's most beautiful grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Whereas Dr. Fernando C. Gomez is an avid, unabashed University of Michigan football fan who proudly displays his alma mater maize in blue colors even while living and working deep in the heart of Texas. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Regents of the Texas State University system enthusiastically and unanimously adopt this resolution, thanking Dr. Fernando C. Gomez, a modern-day Renaissance man, for his many contributions to the Texas State University system and to the great state of Texas. Adopted by the Board of Regents, Texas State University system on the 13th day of August, 2020.
Fernando, before I ask you to comment, I'm going to have Chancellor McCall make a few statements.
It wasn't that long ago, Fernando, that I went into your office and I said, I want to buy a mountain range for the system, and I want to buy an office building from the University of Texas system. You said, are either for sale? And I said, no. Figure out a way how we can do this. And you did, and you got paperwork drawn greatly that was to their satisfaction, and we literally moved mountains in Texas, and that's an easy task for you to do. We were required by statute to participate in an insurance program that wasn't good for us, and you helped figure out how to get us out of it, which is inured to our benefit in significant ways. I can go on and on and on. But speaking of O. Henry Hall, which you helped to bring about, from now on, the executive conference room on the 4th floor will be known as your conference room. The Dr. Fernando Gomez Executive Conference Room. And and thanks to the Texas State University System Foundation, and in particular Bill and Gay Scott, there's a new scholarship, the Dr. Fernando Gomez Scholarship for Hispanic students who are pre-law in studies. And I want to thank Bill and Gay Scott in particular for the generous financial contribution they have made to cause this to be.
Okay, Fernando. You get your turn.
Wrote that resolution. I'm deeply touched, and did not expect and I'm just deeply touched. I don't know where the time has gone, but every bit of it, sometimes even the hard times, have been good times, because I've worked with exceptional people. I've worked with some of the best and most noted business people in this state, professionals who are regarded across the country, people who run major state agencies and earn doctorates and LLMs and move entire regions of the state by their efforts and their organizing and creating everything from publications to I don't know what. You're an amazingly serve on major federal boards, an amazing group of people. Run newspapers, run companies. It's astonishing. And I had an experience about a year ago where I was at a conference that the University of Texas put on for their people, and they invited general counsel there, invited the general counsels from the other systems, and they had different questions for each one of the general counsels as part of the training module. And one of the questions that didn't fall to me but fell to somebody else was, well, how do you establish a rapport with the board? How do you bond with the board? And the person that answered the question is a good man and a good lawyer, an exceptional lawyer, a lot of respect for him. He says, well, we get a chance to bond in executive session. And I thought about that and raised my hand, and I talked to Dr. McCall before, and because I wanted to make sure he was okay with my sharing this. And I told him, I said, 30 years ago, the board went through a very bitter time, the termination of a president, and it was a 5-4 hotly contested and debated issue. It was about the time that it was in between the Clements-White administration, someplace in there. And the board was divided, and they were different political viewpoints, but they were very, very divided. And the chairman that was coming in at the time, the regents went off with the chancellor and the presidents, and they would have dinner like on Thursday night. And everybody else, the vice chancellors and the vice presidents, would go off into a restaurant someplace. Anyway, this chairperson was coming in as new chair, an accountant from El Paso by the name of Ruben Escobedo. And he said, well, we don't have second-class citizens in this system. We have only first-class citizens. And from now on, we're going to eat together, and we're going to be together when we come to these meetings. And it's been that way ever since. And I told folks that, and people were just stunned in the audience, and my colleagues were stunned. And then I told them about the boom boom room. And they absolutely loved that. And I said, you mean that you actually have lunch with regents? You mean you actually have a hospitality time with them? Yes, we do. Do you know how special you all are? Every single one of you is so special. We have presidents. These institutions, you didn't have, we were bouncing around state buildings. We started in the Sam Houston State Office Building on the Capitol grounds, and then we got moved out when the Capitol Restoration Project started. And the governor moved us out, and we went to the Insurance Commission on 4th and Guadalupe. And we're there for a while. When I was hired back from California, that's where we were. And then we moved to the Rusk State Office Building. But this board, until the late 1960s, did not even have a small piece of good Texas earth to call their own. And look where you are now. And I'm particularly proud of what the presidents have done, and the association that I've had with the presidents and the vice presidents has been very, very meaningful. And to see something as transformative as a medical school at this university, who would have thought it? The last such thing that I can think of that's happened, at least on this campus and elsewhere, was the founding of the College of Criminal Justice and the first PhD program in the system in the 1960s. This is truly transformative. And you've had leaders like Dr. Hoyt and others who have accomplished this, and the chancellor, and I know what he did and what his part was in this, as well as many, many other people. And I feel very privileged to have been a part of that. We lost Angelo State University in 2007, but we got the Lamar University system and those wonderful institutions. There's a tremendous amount of pride that I have in these associations that I've had, and in particular the last 10 years. What Dr. McCall has done, and with his vision, and when he calls me about, I kind of forgets the story a little bit. I was at my dad's funeral, and he called me on Monday, and I told him to call me if anything comes up. And we're burying my dad on Tuesday, and he says, Dr. Gomez, there's no, I talked to him on Monday. I said, call me. I'm at my dad's funeral, but call me if you need me. There's no circumstance under which I would ever call you at a time like this. This is at 9 o'clock. About 10:30, I guess he'd heard from Commissioner Patterson over at the General Land Office. He said, Dr. Gomez, he said, we need the Christmas mountains. And I said, yes, sir. And I was very pleased at a time of high emotion in my life to have been able to do that. The work for me has been enormously fulfilling and satisfying, and I have you all to thank for that. And I thank Dr. McCall for his leadership, for his part. I never thought he would pry O. Henry Hall from the University of, he got turned down by Chancellor Figueroa, and he kept at it. And then after we got the building, the environmentalists from the Conservation Fund, which has put a conservation trust on the building, would come every few months to ask about that, about getting the Christmas mountains back. You really should be giving those to the National Park Service. You really should let somebody else have these mountains. Finally, the third time the fellow came by, I told him, I said, you can have the Christmas mountains when you can pry them from Dr. McCall's cold, dead fingers. But Dr. McCall has taken care of the legal office. He's taken care of me. He's taken care of everybody that's been part of that office. He's looked after the campuses and the presidents, and it is a profound privilege for me to have worked with him and with all of you. And from the bottom of my heart, I know I was born in New Mexico and educated elsewhere, but I have a little piece of myself in these institutions. And my wife's probably going to kill me because I'll be a retiree next month, but to that scholarship fund, I will pledge $5,000, Dr. McCall. Thank you so very much for everything.
Fernando, all I can say is probably that executive conference room will probably be not Michigan colors.
Well, how would you ever follow that? Thank you again, Fernando. We appreciate your service all these years. All the remaining action items in the miscellaneous section have been moved to the Friday agenda. And the remaining items in the section are on the consent agenda tomorrow. At this time, we'll recess into executive session. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, sections 551.071 through 551.074 of the Governmental Code, no votes will be taken in executive session, or decisions made in executive session. For the record, the time is 3:11. Welcome back. We'll now reconvene in open session, and the time is 5:11. For the record, in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, no votes were taken or decisions reached in executive session. This evening's reception and dinner begin at 6:30. Vans will depart the hotel at 6:15 for transportation to the event. Dress is business attire, and we're all considering just staying since it's 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back. That means we can be at the hotel for a whole 10 minutes. But if there is no further business, we'll stand in recess for the day and reconvene in open session tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. And the time is 5:12.